hear so many different ideas about good health. How do you separate the myths from the facts? Welcome to Healthy View Radio with your trio of co-hosts, Andrea Beeman, Lisa Lutan, and Michelle Fennighaus. Today, you'll learn what it takes to be healthy and happy within a stressful world from three experts walking their talk. Here is Lisa, Andrea, and Michelle.
Hello, all you lovely listeners. We are so thrilled to be here with you today for another episode of our top-rated radio show and podcast, Healthy View Radio. I'm Lisa Lutan. I'm here with my lovable and laughable co-hosts, Andrea Beeman and Michelle Fennighaus. Woo-hoo. Today's topic is pretty pertinent and all too common in today's world. Today, we're going to be talking about anxiety, addiction, and depression, which all three are at epidemic rates in our country. I was actually kind of curious about the stats on all of this, so I did a little digging, and this is what I found out. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the USA, and according to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, 40 million Americans over the age of 18 are affected by anxiety. That's roughly 18% of our nation's population. Now, major depressive disorder, otherwise known as depression, is the leading cause of disability in the US for ages 15 to 44, and it affects more than 16 million American adults. That's 6.7% of our population. And addiction is just crazy. I mean, opioid addiction alone is gone crazy. You can't not hear about it every day. In fact, more than 115 people die every day in the US to overdosing on opioids. And that's just one form of addiction. So I think this topic is super, super important to talk about openly and honestly. And you guys, Andrea and Michelle, I want to know, are your patients coming in with depression, anxiety, addiction? What are you seeing?
Yeah, a lot of my clients are struggling with anxiety in particular. So there's untreated, unmedicated anxiety. There's anxiety medications I'm seeing a lot of, and sleep aids, all falling under that category, for sure.
Yeah, I see it a lot too. I see a lot of anxiety coming in. People are flustered, lost, and it also addictions. I mean, I see it all the time. I see it in my own family. I see it in the world. Just this year, Chris Cornell died of an opioid overdose, and it was black box medication. So, it's prescribed. It's both street drugs and prescribed by the doctors. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and it doesn't make for a settling, or a comfortable world, right? If you have all this stuff going on.
No, it doesn't. I remember years ago, I read a book by Andrew Weil called Spontaneous Happiness, and he talks about the epidemic. This was particularly depression, but he mentions the other things as well. And the bottom line is that we are like animals, and we're not living like animals in nature. And all the things that go into making us healthy creatures on the planet aren't happening. Like, we're not spending time in nature. We're not moving our bodies. We're not nourishing ourselves. And I think that it's just kind of scary, the state of what we've become. I don't know what we are anymore. We're like somewhere between animals and robots, right?
Yeah, we're hybrids. Yeah. We're Cylons. Yeah, you guys watch Battlestar Galactica?
No, maybe I should.
You should. Yeah, I agree with you. It's not just a problem that happens like over there to that person. It's happening everywhere. In fact, I remember many years ago when I was still working in advertising, and I was diagnosed with anxiety in the form of, here, take these pills for anxiety. I spoke with somebody who I worked with. She was a resource manager. So she kind of had the ins on what was going on with everybody, especially the higher ups. She got a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And she was like, oh, darling, don't worry about it. Everybody here is on anti-anxiety medication. You kidding me? And I was like, I had no idea. But then it just made so much sense. I mean, yeah, of course they were. It was a really crazy, fast-paced world of advertising, but it's not just that industry.
No, antidepressants, I mean, are very huge and they're very helpful, but it's kind of alarming some of this stuff that's coming out about it, how when you go off of them, if you've been on for a very long time, there's a very terrible adjustment period. And that's, putting a lot more fear. And so I feel bad, because it certainly helps people in a time of need, but we really don't know the long-term effects of many of these drugs.
Well, I mean, they numb us, right? So what are we getting numb from? Whether it's anti-anxiety or antidepressant or the opioids, they all have a numbing factor. So what is going on in our society that people can't bear to be here, right? They're either, running ahead of themselves in the future and freaking out about everything, or they're depressed about everything that happened in the past and they're not present, or they're looking at what's going around and they're going, WTF, and they just want to get numb, right? Because they don't want to see it, don't want to feel it, don't want to be a part of it. So, I think that there used to be things called revolutions, right? And now we don't have so much revolution because everybody's like numb. They're like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. My life sucks. It's okay. Everything's cool. Don't worry, because they're on this mood altering drug that won't let them feel all the stuff that they really need to feel, which is, okay, this totally sucks, whatever it is, and I got to change something, either internally, externally, something in the world. I know that's pretty deep for Thursday afternoon, but it had to be said.
I know it's a serious topic, and you're right, Lisa. I just finished reading a book called The Anatomy of an Epidemic. Have you guys heard of it?
No.
It's really fascinating. It looks at the question of why in the, say, 50 to 70 years since we've had psychiatric drugs, do we have greater and greater levels of folks who are disabled due to their psychiatric conditions? You would think it would be the opposite. You would think fewer and fewer people would be disabled and not functioning by things like depression if we had medications that worked. So it's taking a look at why that is, and it's fascinating. It talks about schizophrenia and depression. It talks about ADHD and how, the serotonin deficiency model of depression. It really rails into why that's not the case. It's not that folks are necessarily deficient in serotonin the way that someone with type 1 diabetes is deficient in insulin. So we're really looking at the short term and then the long term effects of medication.
That's so fascinating. I always remember that there was something going around for a while talking about how in Africa, if somebody's sad, what do? They sing, they put them in a circle, they dance around them, they tell them they're loved, they bring them up. And here you go to a room and you sit and you talk and you pop a pill. And we're disconnecting from what is it that we need to feel okay.
Right. Love, community, good vibes, dancing.
Yeah,
dancing,
all those things. Lots of dancing. Totally.
Well, and that's all things that are around us or outside of us or the situations that we're in. But what about on a cellular level? Because I would suggest that at least 50% of what's happening is happening from the inside out, or because of our exposures to environmental factors, chemicals, the food that we're eating. We're just not processing our thoughts and emotions the way that we would if we were eating a diet of all real whole food. You weren't being exposed to all toxic chemicals every time we turn around. So there's that angle to think about as well.
Well, yeah, I also know people that eat well, take care of themselves, do all the stuff that, the healthy stuff that we talk about every week on the show. And they also suffer from anxiety and depression, so it's not, I know that it comes from the inside, but maybe that focus, right? The sole focus on the food and the exercise, maybe they need to go a little bit deeper. What is my purpose? Do I have a community? Right. So it's never one thing that creates the disease or the dysfunction, whether it's in the body or in the mind. It's a culmination of things, right? So you could have the healthiest person in the world, but if they are healthy and eating dinner alone every night by themselves,
that's true.
Right, then the depression will be there.
One of my favorite books of all time was Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And he says, if you're living in the past, you're going to be sad. If you're living in the future, you're going to be anxious. Yep. So you got to live now. And it's so simple and it's so true. And that's where I love to bring in how meditation can help us deal with these things too, about constantly learning how to come back to now so that when we do start catastrophizing about what's going on or getting, very teary about what happened right now, things might not be so bad. So it's a practice.
Well, it sure is. And it's hard for a lot of people to do that, especially if, I agree with you, Andrea. It's not one or the other. It's not like, oh, you don't eat a good diet, therefore you have this problem. It is a 360 view of a person's life will give you a better understanding of what's going on. But just to think of one small thing, imagine drinking like a double espresso. Your mind starts racing, your heart starts pumping, all of a sudden, maybe you were able to live in the moment 5 minutes ago, and now suddenly you're racing ahead into the future because you're all revved up on caffeine. And when we have a Starbucks on every corner, I think there's something going on here.
Right now, speaking of the right now, I like your little green polka dotted shirt that you have on today, your little cuteness.
Thank you.
Just an aside.
I want to share something kind of crazy. I talk a lot about sugar addiction, which I think is super real and strong. And I found for me that the connection I made that changed my life forever was when I realized how much sugar affected my thought patterns. And so it wasn't only that I worried more, but what I worried about changed when I was eating a lot of sugar. And that was huge. Normal worry, I'd have everything. But when I was eating a lot of sugar, catastrophe, everything, was catastrophe. And that was such a huge thing for me. So when that comes back, if I ever get in that, I'm like, okay, what am I eating? What's going on here? And that awareness around that has been a life changer for me.
100%. You guys, I remember this day. I was walking through our apartment and it was a sunny day. I can remember I was right near the radiator. I could just picture that moment in my mind. And I thought, oh, I feel happy. And I had been about 6 months off sugar. I had read, Sugar Blues by William Duffy. And I was like, all right, that's it. We're going to try this out. Went off sugar entirely. And it was all of a sudden, this fog was gone. I realized that the fog was gone. And I was like, is this what happy feels like? Because I've definitely not been feeling quite this way since maybe I was a kid.
Pretty powerful.
Yeah. Really powerful.
It took you 6 months?
I couldn't say for sure, but I think it took several months to really start feeling a difference. And just that day, it struck me how much differently I was feeling. I'm just nothing really was going on special. I was just walking through my house on a weekend and it just boom, hit me in the forehead like that. This is what people are talking about when they say happy. Yeah. It took several months.
It used to take me 10 days, just to get that euphoria. I don't feel that anymore. But when I was first starting dabbling and taking breaks from sugar, day 10, I was like, woohoo, I'm feeling great, and I do notice that when people, if they haven't done it before, it's super quick.
I must have been very remedial then. It took longer than 10 days.
Oh my God. If I ever get off sugar, I think I might explode.
Explode with all the happiness.
With all the happiness. There she goes. Actually, I don't eat a lot of sugar. Sometimes I have a little bit of honey in my tea, but I don't crave sugar. I remember as a teenager and as a young adult, I craved sugar all the time. But I think it was because mostly I was exhausted and I was craving the sugar. And I also had anxiety and depression. So I'm sure I toggled back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I do love sugar and I'm a sugar addict and I do have it time to time, but most of the time then I go back off because I remember so quickly how shitty I feel and I feel so much better not having it. But
I cursed on the radio.
Ooh, it's okay. Don't tell anyone. Anyway, but I do think that, that word forever is really intimidating for people. And so sometimes, you just say, I'm going to do it for right now, whatever that is, whatever you're trying to break free of. I think one day at a time really does make tremendous sense. But I'm curious, Andrea, you're such an expert on herbs. Are there any herbs that are super helpful for people who are dealing with anxiety or depression?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, lemon balm is a classic nervine to help calm the nervous system, as well as skullcap. I know it's got a scary little name, but these are nervines that help calm the nervous system. So if somebody is anxious, right, or on edge, like what you guys were talking about and what Eckhart Tolle talks about all the way in the future, how do you get them present? How do you get them grounded. So they may need something like some of the adaptogenic herbs that are also roots because they're very grounding. So to help them to kind of like settle in to their system and not be on the edge of their system. So there's a lot of herbs that people can use.
So cool.
Yeah. And
So
St.
great.
John's wort for depression, like they say, oh, St. John's wort doesn't work. Well, you got to take a lot of it. It's a flower. And also, I wouldn't just take the St. John's wort herb. I would actually look at the flower, because looking at the beautiful yellow flower, it's stimulating to the mind. It's going to bring that brightness up. It's pretty, make you happy. Yellow's a happy color.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about this topic from our guest today, Robert Lustig, because Robert Lustig, MD, MSL, is a professor of pediatrics in the Division of Endocrinology and a member of the Institute for Health Policy Studies at the University of California, San Francisco. Dr. Lustig has fostered a global discussion of metabolic health and nutrition, exposing some of the leading myths that underlie the current pandemic of diet-related disease. He believes the food business, by pushing processed food loaded with sugar, has hacked our bodies and minds to pursue pleasure instead of happiness, fostering today's epidemics of addiction and depression. Yet by focusing on real food, we can beat the odds against sugar, processed food, obesity, and disease. He's the author of the New York Times bestseller, Fat Chance, Beating the Odds Against Sugar, Processed Food, Obesity, and Disease, the Fat Chance Cookbook, and his newest book, Hacking of the American Mind, The Science Behind the Corporate Takeover of Our Bodies and Brains. We're also going to be speaking later in the show with Omar Cumberbatch, who is a fellow health coach and buddy. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsor, ButcherBox. I used to be a vegetarian for years, but after I was diagnosed with SIBO, I found that I needed to add in more animal protein into my diet. It just seemed to feel better for me. And so I added some meat back, but I was really, really careful that when I did add this meat back, that it was the highest quality meat that I could find. Otherwise, I just wouldn't feel good about eating it. And if anybody has gone from not eating meat to eating meat, you know what I mean. Well, that's why I'm really happy that we have ButcherBox as one of our sponsors. When my clients tell me they don't know where to source grass-fed meat or encourage, or that they live in for dessert and don't have access to better quality animal proteins, I encourage them to go check out ButcherBox. ButcherBox sources from local farms that are naturally and humanely raising their animals, which matters a lot to all of us, right? And they have boxes set up and ready to be delivered to you so that it's really easy for you to get a variety of meats and cuts of meats. For example, to get you started, they select a well-balanced assortment of easy-to-cook items like chicken breasts and more interesting ones like Denver steaks. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds like super cool. Anyway, you can mix up your own box. It's really great. To learn more, go to butcherbox.com/HVR Healthy View Radio, and you will get $20 off your first purchase and a free container of bacon. How awesome is that? So stay tuned. We'll be back with our guest after the break.
All clear.
A whole container of bacon.
Whatever. I was like, I saw the 30 seconds. Hello.
Robert, I'm going to promote you to panelist and take you off mute so we can chat. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, very good.
Wonderful.
All right,
So you're
it's
live
Lisa,
on
Andrea, and
Facebook.
Michelle, right?
Yeah, you're live on Facebook, but you're not live on radio at the minute, and we'll be back on live radio in a minute. But say hi to
Okay.
Facebook.
Hi, Facebook. Turn it off for your mental health.
Yeah.
I know. It's such a
Only watch our show.
I have
Well,
been
we're
I
telling-
give, I give talks on technology addiction right now.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, we can talk about that too. It, you know, there's a real move afoot to do something, not just in the United States, but in fact, the GDPR, the Global Digital Prevention regulations, are about to enact in Europe in July, and so all of the rules are going to change, and some American companies are already adopting them because there's a big problem.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. Now, Doc, I'm
it
going
ain't
to
making people happy.
No, it's draining their energy and really messing with their minds.
Yep.
I'm going to be interviewing you, and also the girls are going to put in some questions as well.
Okay.
And then at about I think it's the 14-minute mark or the 13-minute mark, we're going to wrap you up, and then I'm going to ask you to tell people where to find you. And then you're still going to be on the video feed, and then we'll wrap it up, and then we'll let you go.
Try to make it by 9:40 a.m. my time, because I actually have another call at that hour. Okay, so that's 18 minutes.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that'll work.
I think we're good.
We'll have you out of here.
If you have to go, just give us a little wave.
And just hop out.
Okay.
We'll cover for you.
All right. 9:40 is when I will be on the other call. So.
Okay. You're a busy fella.
Yeah.
Happy to just listen in.
Sorry to interrupt. Here we go.
You're listening to Andrea Beeman, Lisa Lutan, and Michelle Fennighaus with Healthy View Radio. Do you have a question or comment for the show? Please call us right now at 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or send us an email from our Voice America radio page. You'll find connections to reach any of the hosts there. Now, back to Healthy View Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Healthy View Radio, the only radio show that can lift your depression, quell your anxiety, and keep you coming back for more. In a healthy way, of course. I'm Andrea Beeman, and today we are excited to have with us Dr. Robert Lustig, who is not only a well-known doctor with a clinical practice in San Francisco, he is also an advocate for public health. And his YouTube video, Sugar, The Bitter Truth, has received more than 7.5 million views. So that makes him a rock star as well as a doctor. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I hardly think that 7.5 million views makes me a rock star. Lady Gaga's got about
a budding rock star. You're a budding rock star. Before we begin, we like to let our audience get to know our guests on a more personal level. And we have a lot of foodies out there, and they're always curious to know, first and foremost, what did you have for breakfast today?
I had one egg over easy on a piece of whole wheat toast.
Oh my gosh, I had the same breakfast.
Well, funny about that.
Yes. Did you have grass-fed butter on there?
No. No, I did
Olive
not.
oil? Just
olive oil, absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. Another question is, what is the number one thing that you do every day that has the greatest impact on your life?
I walk up the hill. I'm in San Francisco. I'm at the top of Forest Hill. It's about 1,000 feet in the air, and I have to walk up it. So if you've ever noticed, San Franciscans are in very good shape, and it's because, number one, the fog keeps the UV rays out, so everybody looks younger. And number two, the hills make everybody a little bit more flexible, a little bit better exercise, a little bit better insulin sensitivity. When I was living in Memphis, and I weighed 50 pounds more than I do now, and I was asked to join my colleagues, because I was a fellow here, my wife looked at the picture of me from 17 years ago, and she said, there's only one person in this picture who's aged, and it's you. So,
oh my gosh.
Fountain of youth out here.
Oops.
And then my final personal question for you before we get into the nitty gritty is, what is your guilty pleasure?
Junior's cheesecake.
Oh,
right off the top of his head.
When I'm in New York, always stop for a piece of Junior's cheesecake. The good news is I'm only in New York once or twice a year.
Well, that's all. That'll last. That'll last you. That amount of fat and sugar will last you the whole year.
You bet.
Okay, so Doc, I love the title of your latest book, The Hacking of the American Mind, the Science Behind the Corporate Takeover of Our Bodies and Brains. So what brought you to the realization that the American public has been hacked?
So I've known about these two neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin, which form the sort of scientific basis of the book. I've known about this for 35 years. I was a postdoctoral fellow in neuroscience back at Rockefeller University back in the late 80s. But the data has matured. We now have functional MRI data, we have PET scanning data on people, we have longitudinal data, we have genetic data, and nobody had put it together in any sort of meaningful form. And I wasn't sure that I was going to put it into any meaningful form either, until in March of 2014, I was giving psychiatry grand rounds at an American medical school on addiction. And the woman who ran the outpatient recovery program gave me a tour of their facilities. And yeah, I was making, social comment, being, nice. And I just asked her what getting clean meant to her. And she said something that was so jarring, I just stopped in my tracks. She said, when I was shooting up, I was happy. What my new life has given me is pleasure. And I thought to myself, wait a second, that is exactly wrong. That is totally 180. And I thought I didn't say anything to her, that would have been pretty obtuse of me, but I just thought about it all the way home. And so when I got home, I talked to some psych colleagues and I said, you ever hear about that? People making that inappropriate distinction? Oh yeah, we hear that all the time. People don't know the difference. And I thought to myself, why don't they know the difference? And that was the book. That was the start of the book.
Well, why don't they know the difference?
Well, you tell me why they don't know the difference. The problem is that we, for the last 40 to 50 years, have been told that pleasure is happiness. Give you some examples. Coca-Cola's longest running campaign from 2005 to 2015, Open Happiness. Now, any happiness in that bottle? Sugar, dopamine. Caffeine, dopamine. Caramel coloring, phosphoric acid, salt, water. Sorry, no happiness. Lots of pleasure, no happiness. How about Raisin Bran? The road to your happy place is paved with raisins and flakes and pavement. So the question is Raisin Bran a healthy, happy cereal? Now, have you ever taken a look at the raisins in Raisin Bran?
Yeah.
On the advertisement, they're brown. In the box, they're white.
Coated in sugar.
If you look at the added sugar on the side of the package, 9 grams of added sugar separate from the raisins make you eat it. Okay? And it's not just food, it goes down the list. Okay? And then add some stress to it. Have you ever seen the Cialis commercial, when the time comes, will you be ready? With the 2 naked people in the bathtub. Well, I've got one that says, how about for 3 ways? Talk about stress and pleasure being melded together. I mean, really. And it goes on and on and on. And the question is this okay? Turns out pleasure and happiness are 2 completely, totally distinct, independent, except the dependent, emotions. So what's the difference between pleasure and happiness? Pleasure is short-term, happiness is long-term. Pleasure is visceral, you feel it in your body. Happiness is ethereal, you feel it above the neck. Pleasure is taking, happiness is giving. Pleasure is experienced alone. Happiness is usually experienced in social groups. Pleasure can be achieved with substances. Happiness cannot be achieved with substances. The extremes of pleasure, whether it be substances or behaviors. So substances like cocaine, heroin, nicotine, alcohol, sugar, or behaviors, shopping, gambling, social media, video gaming, porn. In the extreme, all lead to an addiction. There's an aholic next to every one of those. But there's no such thing as being addicted to too much happiness. And then finally, number 7, the big kahuna, pleasure is dopamine and happiness is serotonin. So 2 different neurotransmitters, 2 different areas of the brain, 2 different sets of receptors, 2 different regulatory pathways. So you say to me, like, why do I care? So what? Big deal. So they screwed it up on TV. Well, it matters a lot. And here's why it matters. And it's a science reason. Neurons in the brain like to be stimulated, but they like to be tickled, not bludgeoned. Chronic overstimulation of any neuron leads to neuronal cell death. Dopamine, as it turns out, is an excitatory neurotransmitter. So if dopamine continues to fire nonstop, ad nauseum, ad infinitum, the neurons receiving that information will die. So that receiving neuron has a self-defense mechanism. It has an option B. What it does is it downregulates the number of receptors so that there's less chance that any given dopamine molecule will find a receptor. So what does this mean in human terms? It means you get a hit, you get a rush, receptors go down. Next time you need a bigger hit to get the same rush, and the receptors go down. And then a bigger hit, a bigger hit, a bigger hit, bigger hit, until finally, huge hit to get nothing. That's called tolerance. And then when the neurons actually start to die, that's called addiction. Now, serotonin is the contentment neurotransmitter. It's the one that you're trying to achieve when you use mindfulness meditation, Calm, the app, looking out over a, beautiful sky with, some water in the background, sort of that, life is good, feeling. Serotonin is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It doesn't stimulate the next neuron. It actually puts it to rest. So serotonin doesn't kill the next neuron. So you can't overdose on too much happiness because the receptors don't go down. But there's one thing that downregulates serotonin, dopamine. So the more pleasure you seek, the more unhappy you get. Then throw a little stress on top, which is inherent in all of these pitches and advertisements and ways that, things, not just products, but behaviors are marketed to us. And now you have overdose on dopamine, lack of response in terms of serotonin, and you've got addiction and depression. And that is what America is suffering from. And we have the data.
I think we need to take a big pause here, because this is huge. This is fascinating. And this goes against everything we've ever been taught.
No kidding.
Yeah,
That's
like
exactly
I'm like,
oh,
my brain is like, oh my God, right now. So basically, in our search for pleasure, we're decreasing our chance of happiness.
Correct. That's exactly
huge.
right.
Is everybody hearing that? so then, what do we do to improve our chances of being happier?
Right. So the goal is not up your dopamine. The goal is up your serotonin. Now, there are many, many things you can buy that will up your dopamine, but dopamine's short-lived and it makes your serotonin go down. So as it turns out, everything that ups your serotonin, you can't buy. And they're all clinically proven and effective to work, and they're all things your mother told you, but you forgot. So I call them the 4 C's for, count them. Number 1, connect. And that does not mean Facebook. That means interpersonal, eye-to-eye, face-to-face connection. Now, why does that work? What's going on there? What's the science of that? Well, it turns out you have a set of neurons in the back of your head near your occipital cortex called mirror neurons, and people have recorded from them. And what they do is those neurons are reading the facial expressions of the person you're talking to in real time and learning those emotions that those facial expressions convey. And then you end up adopting those same emotions yourself. Okay? Paul Ekman, famous psychologist from UC Berkeley, went to Papua New Guinea. They'd never seen a white person. They had exactly the same facial expressions for the same emotions baked into our DNA, because this was how we conveyed before there was language. Okay? So everyone's got it, and everyone's got the same portfolio of facial expressions. So when you turn other people's emotion into your own, that has a name. It's called empathy. And empathy is a very specific driver of serotonin. And if you can't perform that function, you are a psychopath. Think about it. Okay? So connect, and it has to be eye to eye. Digital connection is connectivity, not connection. And actually, what you read on digital media is only dopaminergic and gets people crazy. Number 2, contribute. And this has to be outside of yourself. So contributing to your IRA is not contribution. This has to be, without personal gain. Okay, Boy Scout badges are dopamine. Okay, not sort of Habitat for Humanity. That's serotonin, if you will. Now, philanthropy, altruism, volunteerism are all methods for being able to give to others. Social animal. Most people want to know, hey, can my work count as contribution? And the answer is yes, with 2 provisos. Number 1, you can see how your work helps others. And number 2, your boss can see it too. If both of those are satisfied, you can derive contribution through your work. Number 3, COPE. And that's a big grab bag term, but it actually means 3 things: sleep, mindfulness, exercise. So currently, 35% of American adults do not get 7 hours of sleep a night, and 23% are clinical insomniacs. And if you don't get enough sleep, your ghrelin, which makes you eat like crazy, your dopamine goes sky high because you're eating all the comfort food, okay? And you're not generating any serotonin. Number 2, mindfulness. So the most dangerous term in the English language is multitasking. And the reason is because only 2.5% of the population can actually do it. The rest of us are serially unitasking. We showed in fMRI studies. So the bottom line is everybody has to be able to multitask to get a job today, except nobody can. So all that's doing is raising their stress, their cortisol, knocking out the area of the brain called the prefrontal cortex here in the front, which suppresses that dopamine drive. So everybody goes hog wild and a little crazy by multitasking. And then finally, exercise. Turns out exercise is as good as SSRIs at alleviating depression. And if you combine mindfulness and exercise together, you can reverse depression. And then finally, number 4, the big kahuna, cook. And
yeah, that's our favorite.
That is our favorite.
I like Coke.
There are 3 things in food that matter. Okay, one is tryptophan. Tryptophan is the precursor to serotonin. It is the rarest amino acid in the entire body. And so it's hard to get. It's in eggs, chicken, fish, not exactly processed food. Number 2, omega-3 fatty acids, also not in processed food, high in marine life and flax. And the reason is because it's anti-inflammatory. There's an inflammatory haze around the synaptic boutons in the brain, which goes away when you give the animal omega-3s. And then finally, number 3, too much sugar, because sugar drives dopamine, lowers serotonin. So what we want is a high tryptophan, high omega-3, low sugar diet. That's called real food. What we currently have is a high sugar, low omega-3, low tryptophan diet. That's called processed food. Eat real food.
Yeah, I love that. Eat real food. So, Doc, this is great information, and it's a lot for people to digest. So where can our viewers and our listeners find more about you?
Sure. So I do run a website, robertlustig.com. You can find pretty much everything there. I am the chief science officer of a nonprofit called Eat Real. We are trying to change the global food supply by praising the good. And you can also go to UCSF profiles, and my academic literature and career are all delineated there.
Okay, thanks so much for coming on. We're really happy that you shared your knowledge with our people.
All right, well, thank you so much for having me, Andrea.
Okay, so I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Squatty Potty, the little stool that you use with your toilet to help you poop better. We are all huge fans of Squatty Potty, as are millions of other people out there in the world. So you could save 10% off of any of your Squatty Potty purchases by going to squattypotty.com/HVR. And we're sure to take care of you. They'll take care of you as well. And when we come back, we're going to be speaking with Omar Cumberbatch. He's the founder of Health Coach Academy podcast. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
All right. Dr. Lustig.
Okay.
So Lisa, you can have the thing back for next week.
Oh. Okay, good. Good. Wow, I just learned a ton.
I'm going to bring Omar on to make sure that we can hear him. Are you there, Omar?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Do you want to turn on your video?
Yep. There you go.
Hey, Omar.
How you doing?
Hi, Omar.
Hi, everybody.
Good to see you.
Good
I
to
like
see
the
you too.
handheld mic.
Yeah. You want me to lower it a little bit?
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. I like it. It's like you're doing a game show. Yeah.
This is Omar Cumberbatch. And I was in Doctor Strange.
A brand new car.
Are you any relation to the other Cumberbatch?
Unfortunately not. So I wish. That would be awesome. But yeah, no, I'm not, unfortunately. But I used to joked my entire like adolescent life because it's rhymed with Cabbage Patch, and that's when it was hot back then. So I'm really excited to have like a cool name for the first time in my life.
So it's Cumberbatch, is that right?
Yeah, Cumberbatch.
Okay,
Yeah.
like Cabbage Patch. I'll never forget it now.
I know, me neither.
Awesome. Well, I'm Michelle. I'm going to be interviewing you today, and
Awesome. Okay.
it's about 10 minutes, right? So you're pro at this. You have your own radio show.
Sorry to interrupt. Here we go.
You're listening to Andrea Beeman, Lisa Lutan, and Michelle Fennighaus with Healthy View Radio. Do you have a question or comment for the show? Please call us right now at 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or send us an email from our Voice America radio page. You'll find connections to reach any of the hosts there. Now, back to Healthy View Radio.
Welcome back to Healthy View Radio. Today we've been talking about anxiety, addiction, and depression, all issues that Andrea, Lisa, and I as health practitioners are seeing in our clients and seeing in the world. It's right up there with weight loss issues in terms of how very common it is. Now I'd like to introduce you to another voice in the world of health and wellness, Omar Cumberbatch. Rhymes with Cabbage Patch. Sorry, Omar. And I'm curious what Omar has seen in his practice in terms of anxiety and depression. We'll get to that in just a second. Let me tell you a little more about him. Omar is the founder of the Health Coach Academy. He's a professional health coach and radio talk show host who received his training from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, so it appears that we have a lot in common. For over a decade, he studied hundreds of different nutritional theories, navigating through the world of contradictory dietary and exercise advice. During this time, he experienced firsthand how challenging it was to devise his own dietary plan. Omar was able to confront the struggle by changing his approach to incorporate a holistic lifestyle. He then decided to become a health counselor to fulfill his passion for working with individuals who struggle with similar obstacles and are motivated to change. Omar, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, we're glad you're here. And today we've been talking so much about anxiety and depression and addiction. So I'm curious about your experience. Are clients coming to you who are struggling with these types of issues?
It's funny that it always comes up on the back end. So most of my clients always come in with something along the lines of they want help with weight loss and stuff like that. But for, as we get deeper into their histories, anxiety and depression always seem to come up. So yes, it's very prevalent in today's society as well as in my clients for sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's easier for someone to say, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds than to say, oh, I'm really struggling with anxiety.
Oh, totally. And that's one of the things that being a health coach, we usually are able to unearth pretty quickly because, we're easily able to give someone dietary advice. We know what we should eat, and there's always a reason behind why we don't necessarily eat the way that we should. And it's amazing just with the stress that people deal with on a daily basis that the anxiety component of it is that's definitely the thing that I've noticed tremendously, especially as of late. So it's definitely something at the forefront for sure.
So I noticed on your website that you are working with clients to improve their health, and you're also working as a resource for other health coaches. Which one of those is your primary focus? Right
now, it's really to profile health coaches to see and have opportunities out there so that they can see that there's a million different types of opportunities because, going to IIN and most certification programs, you come out with a specific way that you can deal and approach with how that you're going to go along with your career. And I love profiling health coaches who do exotic things and just things that we can see and understand that there's many more opportunities besides the one-on-one clients, even group coaching and stuff like that. So I like to profile people in that way so that if you don't see it, it's hard to believe it. So I like to profile people who really are doing different things in the sphere. And that's what I'm really focusing on at this time.
Oh, I see. So what exotic things are you doing in the health sphere?
Well, for me, it is the profiling component. I love having people like yourself, and even when I ran into your co-host Lisa, just seeing how podcasting and radio have done so much to enhance the health coach sphere. That's my passion, of course. I love connecting with people, and I love helping put new and exciting ideas out there.
So you're becoming a voice in the health and wellness world. Who are some of your mentors and some of your heroes that you've looked up to through the years?
Oh, this is an easy one. I am the biggest fan of Sean Croxton, who used to do Underground Wellness back in the day. I know Lisa actually interviewed him a little while ago, but I just think that was one of the coolest things that you could do. The guy reads a book, gets the author on the show, and asks them all cool questions about the book, about health and wealth. It was just like, I can't believe someone can have an occupation like this and make money. So
me either.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And like I said, that's who I wanted to be when I grew up. So I'm trying to take in that path and totally absorbed it. I love to read. I love to engage with other people, especially when it comes to health and wellness. So mentor, hero, Sean Croxton, for sure.
Oh, you got a big fan over here, Sean Croxton. All right. And how did you end up in this field yourself, Omar? Were you always involved with health and wellness?
Yeah, but I just didn't realize it. I was someone who basically, I can run through a wall. That's basically what I ended up doing. I would just consistently try to follow what this path that was told to me of the way to lose weight, get in shape. And I just never saw the results that I anticipated following the quote unquote, like proper way of dieting and exercises. Like if I used to run 5 miles a day. And if I did not, if I didn't lose any weight, I was like, okay, I just have to run 6. So I would just keep on beating myself in the ground and not really understanding that like the simple things and dietary and exercise changes do a world of difference. And it was a breakthrough. Again, actually referring back to Sean, he had a thing on YouTube about sugar, and it never clicked with me. I just stopped eating sugar, and whatever weight that I wanted to lose just fell off. I mean, people were coming up to me and asking me if I was sick, because it was just that simple change just changed my life. So I just became fascinated how the simple things, it's often the stuff that we're not made aware of, are totally the things that actually can improve our health overnight, literally. So that's kind of where I started. And I went to IIN and I started studying a little bit deeper to get certified as a health coach. And this is where I am now. And I love it. And I enjoy engaging with all types of people and really helping them get to where they want to be in their health and wellness goals.
Yeah, I like simple things as well. I'm just looking. Did you make your bed this morning?
No. That's a part of my anxiety, like I knew you guys were going to pick. Listen, not for nothing. Between the Cabbage Patch and me making my bed, this is a hostile.
I was thinking the same thing. I just didn't say anything. I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Kind of get my shoulders a little higher and maybe block that out.
Sit up on a phone book next time.
You don't see my laundry though. I got some laundry.
So. Omar, do you live alone?
I don't.
Too funny. Well, tell us, what is the next big thing that you are planning with your business?
Well, right now, I'm actually going to be co-hosting another podcast with Dr. Lori Shemick. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. She's the author of How to Fight Fatflammation. She's like a huge weight loss guru. She's unbelievable. So me and her are actually about to start a new podcast, co-hosting, and I'm really excited about that. That's more to come. So that's my next project. And I'm still, of course, doing the Health Coach Academy, profiling amazing people, and really excited about that. That's still my passion, because I kind of feel like just myself, I needed some help to find my career path after my certification, and I'm really excited to help other people do the same.
Well, that's very exciting. We like being on the airwaves with you, putting out good information for the world. We're all in good company here today.
Yes, thank you.
Terrific.
Appreciate
Well,
it.
can you tell our listeners where they can go to find out some more about the Health Coach Academy, and maybe also about your new podcast?
Well, the Health Coach Academy is my website is called the Health Coach Academy podcast.com. And you can find the Health Coach Academy podcast on iTunes and all the major platforms for sure. And I'm not going to tell you the whole thing about the other thing because I want to surprise people. And it comes, I can't.
The whole thing about the other thing.
We won't tell anyone.
Yeah.
I saw what
Because
on
we can talk
Facebook.
about your bed.
It's all right. But if you'd have me back when it's ready to launch, I'm all for sharing the whole thing, and I just want to release it, and you guys could help me out and maybe possibly be on the show because I know that you all for sure know a lot about this topic. So I'll be excited to have anybody on who would like to participate in fat loss journeys. So. That's
Fat loss journeys.
That's not the name of it, though.
That would be a great conference, like a away somewhere, a retreat. Hey, come join on the fat loss journey over in Costa Rica or something like that.
Oh,
Let's
man.
do
Yeah,
it.
that would be really nice. I love Costa Rica.
I'm in. We'll have some banana PLT. We'll have some squatty potties.
I would gain some weight just to go.
Not a bad idea.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Omar, and good luck in your new podcast venture.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you again.
Care.
Amazing. So it's been a great show. We've had such great guests today, you guys. I've enjoyed both of them. I want to remind all of our listeners, by the way, that we would love your review on iTunes. You can go to healthyviewradio.com/review, and it will take you right to the page you need to go to in order to leave a review. When we get those, it helps us reach a larger audience. And this information will get in front of the right people, like more of the 1 in 4 women who are currently on an antidepressant in this country, right? So we appreciate your help in helping us get more visibility to reach more people. Thank you in advance. And again, that URL is healthyviewradio.com/review. So Lisa, Andrea, what do you want our listeners to take away from today's episode?
I'm still in that wow moment that Dr. Lustig explained about the difference between pleasure and happiness and how so many people are going about it the wrong way. I mean, this is like groundbreaking, huge. I need to read the book and learn more about like the actual dopamine and serotonin, but I'm totally fascinated.
Yeah, I was wowed by Lisa's face. Did you see her face when she had that little thing? Oh my God, pleasure seeking ruins everything. Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. And I remember studying meditation years and years ago, and they always talked about, the desire for this will take away your happiness, desires and all that stuff. So, it's ancient actual information, but he's bringing it in a scientific realm, so that the masses can go, oh yeah, we connect with science. But I loved what he said that, the things to really bring you happiness, you don't pay for, right? It's connection, empathy, contribute, exercise, and cooking, right?
Coping was the third C.
Well, he also had
doesn't start with the C.
Connect, contribute, cope, and cook. And cope included sleep, meditation, and exercise.
Oh, that's right. So it was a third C that was like a double DBCDE. Yeah.
I saw you taking notes over there.
Yeah, I'm a note taker. It brings me happiness. It doesn't cost anything. So I like that. And, I also like that Omar's trying to spread out into the world. And, he taught everybody to make their bed today. You start the day, you make your bed. We didn't see his laundry. That was fantastic.
Omar's never coming back.
Oh, he's got to come back. He's got to come back. That's the way it works.
I
had a question though. One of the things he said about contribute, is he said, if you notice it and if your boss notices it, and I'm like, well, what if you don't have a boss?
What if you're your own boss? I was thinking,
then you have to notice it.
I want to know. So I think we're contributing, spreading good, healthy work. I think Omar is contributing, helping health coaches find different paths. So I think we're on a good path.
Yeah, I think we're contributing.
Yeah,
for sure.
And we can recognize ourselves, right? For anyone who has their own business, or even if you don't, there's a difference between, oh gosh, all the things that went wrong today. Oh, all the things I could be doing better. And hey, I really nailed that one thing. I did a great job. Right? That's how you can appreciate yourself, whether you're your own boss or not.
Absolutely.
That's true. That's
Nice.
true.
And you know, at the end of the day, if you're helping people for the right reasons, you just know inside. And I think that's the key. Nothing feels better than that, right?
All I
Yeah.
could think of, guys, is teaching kids this stuff, because it's the so-and-so's got an iPad and so-and-so's got this and da-da-da-da-da, and take the kids to the bouncy place that costs $30 instead of just like hanging out with the family. And we got a lot to do if we're going to shift this around for the next generation. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and we will be back next week. If you've missed any of our previous episodes, what have we talked about lately? We talked about tapping. We talked about sex. I mean, you guys got to come back and check us out next week. You catch all of our old stuff on iTunes. Just search for Healthy View Radio, also at healthyviewradio.com, and we are on YouTube. We'll see you all next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
All clear.